All right, the Zephyrus G14 from Asus. This laptop has to be one of the most anticipated devices I've ever had on this channel, and it's because of their chip. These are running the new AMD Ryzen 4000 series laptop chips that are just, they were rumored, they were leaked, they were hyped up to be these Intel killing chips. They were supposed to be super powerful, and let's find out if they actually are. Now, I've said this before in previous videos where I'm like, the best videos that I do, the best reviews that I do come from devices where I'm trying to actively replace something that I already own and I use every day with something new. And this is one of those videos. So it might come across to newer viewers where I'm like, I'm extra critical or picky about certain things. It's not because I'm like, you know, I'm not feeling the vibe on this device. I'm just saying that I'm very passionate about this kind of stuff, right? So I'm trying to deliver to you guys something where I put my mindset into a consumer where I'm like, I'm spending my own money on this. If I'm going to buy this, I want to know everything about it. So I'm going to be, it's very particular, okay? So I'm going to go in on these things a little bit harder than my regular review. That sounded a little weird, but okay, you get the vibe. Let's get into performance first because I think that's the most important thing. These things have excellent performance, like really good. 8 core, 16 threads. It has incredible performance for multi-core applications. It's faster than my Razer Blade in Adobe Premiere. For gaming, these are running a GTX 1660 Ti Max-Q with pretty good performance. There is another variation that runs a 2060 Max-Q, which is obviously a little bit more expensive, but my initial impression when I first saw this was like, I wish they'd put a more powerful GPU in here, but then you have to take in consideration size. Like, these are so small. This is a 14-inch screen. It's a small device. I don't think they could have put anything more powerful in here while being able to cool it properly. Now, because it's a 14-inch screen, my eyes took a little bit of time to get used to gaming on this thing. I've been playing on larger screens for quite a while, but after a couple weeks on this device, I'm perfectly happy with the size. I think the reduction in size and weight on this thing is worth that GPU trade-off for people that are looking for a smaller and or lighter gaming laptop. And it's because the thermals on this thing are good. Like, if this thing had bad thermals, I would have been like, it's not worth it, right? But because they've done such a good job thermally, it's a winner in my books. Now, my thermal testing was done in turbo mode, which is kind of like the best performing automatic mode where the fan noise is loud but acceptable. There is a manual mode where you can just crank the fans and the fans just get way too loud to the point where I think there's no scenario where I personally would ever set it up to manual mode. It's just so loud. It's actually annoying. The temperatures are lower there, but the clock speeds aren't much faster, so I don't feel like most people will be using that particular setting. These laptops have an option for an NME matrix screen, which allows you to customize this back LED array to do a whole bunch of different things. You can have animated GIFs, you can have a logo, you can have the time there, you can do a bunch of stuff. And when I first saw this in January, I was like, that is super cool. Having had this for a couple of weeks, it's a personalization that you just never get to see. It really is for other people looking at you using your device. Like, it's kind of a flex and be like, hey, you know, I got these crazy lights in the back. It's executed very well. Like, the lights are bright, it's easy to configure, but it's not something that I think most people will use for an extended period of time. It's just fun. Like, with the right memes, it can be kind of entertaining, but I don't think most people need this kind of meme machine on the back of their displays. Okay, so there's the real displays. Let's talk about those. So the first one, the dark one here, is running a 1440p 60 hertz panel. This one's running a 1080p 120 hertz panel. So this one first, it's really nice to see a 14-inch panel with high resolution, but I think more people are going to be interested in this one, the 1080p 120 hertz display. Now, this is a relatively unique product because I think at this point in time, there are no other 14-inch or smaller displays that have a high refresh rate like this. And it is technically a 120 hertz panel, but it doesn't feel right. Something feels sluggish on this screen. And if I had to guess, it's the response time. There's ghosting happening. And I don't blame Asus. Like, they're not the company that makes this screen, right? They went out there, looked for a company that was making a display panel that could fit into this thing, and they tried to get a high refresh one. Probably worked with whatever they could get. It's better than a 60 hertz screen that has this kind of response time, I would imagine, but it's not ideal. So if you're the person who's like, this is the perfect gaming laptop, what is the thing that could possibly go wrong on it? I'd say it's the response time on the screen, unfortunately. Now, for me personally, if I had to choose between the two screens, I'd go for the 120 hertz, despite that ghosting. There is no webcam on this laptop. It doesn't even have one in the box. Like, there's no external one that they include. It's just a webcamless device, which I'm okay with. It's just, you got to be aware of that when you're picking one up. Now, let's talk about the keyboard. I like these keyboards a lot. There is one thing I noticed that pertains specifically to the white model. Because the backlighting on these keys isn't super bright, these kind of silver reflective keys are hard to see with the backlighting on. It's actually easier to see these keys even in the dark with the backlighting off. It's kind of weird like that. I feel like when you go with white keys, like when you go white, you have to go bright. Can I say that? If you go white, you have to go bright. And like Razer does it, where they have white keys, but their backlighting is super bright, so you can just see the device really clearly. When you have dim lights, it doesn't work that well. The keys themselves, I like them. They're spaced well, the layout's good, they're responsive. I think most people will enjoy this keyboard. There's also a fingerprint sensor in the top right on the power button, so you can press it to log in. The trackpad's pretty standard. I like it. There's nothing weird about it. The drivers are good on it. And there's also your hardware buttons for volume control, and as well as your ROG software. So you can press it to launch your ROG app. I'm gonna just nitpick on the app here. That thing is way too complex. There's all these charts and tabs in there to try to make it feel techy, but I think most people that end up using that thing just find most of that information useless, and it just feels cluttered. You could just clean that thing out, and I think it would just be a better piece of software. In terms of functionality, it's great. It's more just the visual appearance of that thing that I think they should tidy up a little bit. The overall build is great. The magnesium alloy keeps it strong without adding too much weight. The chassis flex is mild, and the port selection is fair. There's 2 USB-A, 2 USB-C, but there's no Thunderbolt 3 support. All right, let's talk about the internals. So to get inside, it's just a few screws, and once you're in there, you see that ugly-ass red PCB. It's got a single SSD. It's PCIe 2, so you can't put crazy fast drives in there, but it's sufficient. The Wi-Fi card is underneath that SSD, and they give you an Intel Wi-Fi 6 card, which is awesome. There's only a single slot of user serviceable RAM. So there's onboard RAM that's been soldered on by the manufacturer, and then you can replace one stick. So because it's an AMD chip in here, you want to make sure that you're running 2 channels. You always want something inside that RAM slot. It's got lots of heat pipes, and the heat sinks look like they're easily removed, so you can repaste it if you want. It's got powerful fans in here, as well as a 76 watt-hour battery, which is the same size as the 15-inch model from last year. I think it's actually the same size as the 15-inch this year even, 76 watt-hours, and with that, you're getting an 8.5-hour battery life. The AC adapter plugs in on the side, which can be kind of obtrusive. The brick itself is actually a little bit smaller this year. It's 180 watts. You can also charge it with USB-C, so you can plug up to a 65-watt adapter to this thing to juice it up. You don't get full power with that. Like normally with gaming laptops, you need to have your AC adapter plugged in to be able to get full performance off the GPU, and when you have a USB-C device connected to this thing, even at 65 watts, you can't use the GPU at its full potential. You do need the regular AC adapter. Okay, the speakers, they're better this year. They're not awesome, they're just pretty good. There's 2 on top, 2 on the bottom, and they sound pretty clean, and they also get reasonably loud. One thing I didn't mention earlier, the ergo lift, like when you open and close this device, you see how the hinge forces the device to kind of prop up in the back. It's a thermal design that Asus does on some of their devices, but when you have this kind of ergo lift design, the hot air often gets expelled. Like normally on a laptop, hot air comes out the back and the sides, but because the screen is here, the hot air comes out and it just kind of hits the screen. It's not too hot, but I think for people that are interested in buying this machine, they should be aware of where the heat is going. So I thought I should mention it. All right, overall takes on the G14. I really like this device. I wish that screen was, faster response time, but I think they did such a good job on the G14. Most importantly, I'm impressed with what AMD brought. Like, I knew it would be good. I knew they were going to bring the heat this year, but this is way better than I thought it could be. It really just, it pushes Intel into this position where they gotta bring it, right? This is clearly better than what Intel offered with their 9th gen stuff. I'm not exactly sure what their 10th gen stuff is going to bring. We'll find out soon, but something tells me that this probably made Intel a little bit worried. Okay, am I going to be switching over to these? I'm probably going to try out this one. Like I mentioned, I don't love the white keyboard on this thing. If you're going to go white, you got to go bright. But I'm going to try out the gray and try out this